then how do you get economic energy over to Pulsechain? By lighting up the neon sign that is still on Ethereum.
What was that?
Both good points. Both good points. I agree with what you're saying. Execute on. So necessarily saying I agree with it, but I get what you're saying.
I
And
mean,
it does make
it
sense.
doesn't take a lot of economic energy to have hex on Ethereum move. The liquidity is so thin. So if you want to attract intention to Pulsechain, all you need to do is pump EHEX. But nobody notices yet.
When you say economic energy, you're talking about something that is a self-fulfilling prophecy, and that's not a
No, not
self-fulfilling
really,
prophecy.
because
You need to find new buyers all the time. There's
yeah,
always constant
sure.
sell pressure.
Where are these buyers? They're all on Ethereum. Ethereum
No,
is still
there's
the base layer. So if somebody goes to Solana, they come from Ethereum. If somebody goes to Arbitrum, they come from Ethereum. Same thing will happen to Pulsechain. They need to
If
come
we
from
come to
Ethereum.
Pulsechain, we go to Pulsechain. We come from Ethereum, technically.
yeah. I'm just saying, being on this chain, if you were to put $1 into eHex instead of Pulsechain or Pulse Hex or whatever, you're technically doing a disservice because that's $1 less for the whole chain for every single coin on the network. Technically,
Sure.
Yeah,
But
I
it's the same
don't know.
with
It looks like constant sell pressure to me. There's no new buyers. There's no the whole system just failed. And Richard is like this whole chain is Richard, right? Like it's the leader
sure.
at the helm. If he says it, I'm just gonna follow his orders. I don't give. I'm tired of playing games. I would just do what he says, just because.
But what happened to Richard saying he wanted Hex expensive on all chains?
Yeah, well, that narrative's gone.
I guess he's got.
Look what he did on chain, right? If he wanted that to be true, he wouldn't have done the things that he did. There would still be the hex farm for ink. There would still be all these incentives to pair up all this other stuff like he wanted to do from the get. But I think he just seen at least until the thing gets legs, and then maybe like next cycle the P shit can get like kind of memed, just because you need users for that to work, right? And there's no users on the network. There's no even with like Crow and all that, there's no like people coming in from Crow to like sell or pair up or do anything. It's just the meme chain right now. There's nobody coming in and playing with their P coins. They're just like, if they do come in, they just come in and sell and then leave. They're not actually staying on the network. So
I mean, the whole situation around EHEX in March, you could also see it from another side. So what if he was actually disappointed that we didn't have EHEX at the same price as PHEX? And then, as the disappointed dad was, okay, you all have decided.
I don't
He
think it was a
didn't really say
disappointment.
anything. You could
I think
take
it
it
was
both
pretty good
ways.
from the get. Like the fact that those farms were up and people like, I'm sure he was pissed that people early unstaked just to do their farms, but people early unstaked to do those farms, and then he rugged the farms. So it's like they got double.
Correct. Yes. Let them all ESS emergency end stake and wreck themselves and then get over to the farms. Everybody knows that every farm known to men in crypto, it only exists for 2 weeks with those extreme profits. Everybody knows. So everybody made their own stupid mistake. I didn't
Yeah, it's
ES.
still up in the air. If you look at the liquidity pool, anybody pushes 40 ETH into anything, it can bring it back up to like close to all-time highs, which is 40 ETH, just because there's no liquidity on any of the pairs. Even on our or on Pulse Chain, there's no liquidity.
I mean, I was pissed off in the beginning because I bridged over all these coins and went into all these farms. So yeah, I was pissed too when he rocked them all. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's his thing. I wasn't happy about it, but yeah, it is what it is.
He did have a video calling you liquidity locusts, so you did what he wanted, and he called you a locust. So you are the locust.
Exactly. That's why there's so much. But that's literally how I see it. So the way I see Richard and the community is like a dad with his family. And the way I see it is he's just disappointed in us. He always said he was the most proud of the community. The community is the value. What did we all do? We started a fight. So it's starting to act degenerate. I punish them. When my kids act responsibly, I reward them. Why wouldn't he do exactly the same to us?
He's probably mad at his kids for going out and creating sacrifices after sacrifice after sacrifice
Exactly.
after sacrifice after sacrifice, and we could go on for days. I mean, if you go look at hexpulse.info and look at the sacrifice projects, there's some shit that I've never heard of in my life. Yeah. Me and Nico were talking about this last night. If Richard were to bring money in, if I was Richard, which I'm not, but if I was Richard, I'd pump Hex, Pulse, and Pulsex, and I'd let Ink do its thing. That would not
Well,
be one that I pump.
technically, he only has to do one, funny enough. So it doesn't matter if he pumps EHEX, Pulsechain, Pulsex, or Ink. He could literally put it all in one coin. The whole community will automatically disperse it throughout the chain.
Correct.
Everybody rebalances wallets and his balances. So he could literally just pump one coin and it will automatically disperse over the whole chain.
And then when he does this, you're going to see every other one of these non-RH tickers mass sell off, and these people are going to dive in to the RH tickers.
Well,
For
technically,
the
it
most part,
shouldn't.
not
Yeah,
not
yeah,
all, but for the most part,
yeah.
you'll definitely see people move.
The one that has more holders is Hex, and then it's Pulsex and Pulse, and then Ink.
No, it's incorrect. Pulse, and Pulsex have way more holders than Hex. Way more.
I think I saw it on Pulse Go Pulse today. Correct me if I'm wrong.
What did it say?
It says that it had more holders Hex. I think I saw it today. I'm
There's
not in the
way more.
computer.
There's way more holders of Pulse and Pulsex than there is Hex.
Really?
Absolutely. Oh yeah, by far. I think there's how many holders? If you go to hex.com, I think hex.com says that there's like 600,000 holders of Hex, and just Pulse Chain alone,
It's
there's what?
200,
Over
almost 300,000.
no, millions. Over a million.
So why? So okay. So this is my question. So why is Go Pulse? It's wrong. I mean, why is that?
Is it? Let's go look. Let's go look real quick
I'm
to
not.
see.
I'm just buying
To make sure
something.
you're
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna go look real quick for you
Okay.
to see
Thank you.
what Go Pulse says.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So according to Block Explorer, Hex on Pulsechain has 348,000 holders.
Mm-hmm.
And then Pulsechain has,
Like 200-ish.
damn, this site is so slow, 110, so a third.
There's over a million active wallets on Pulse Chain.
It says here 110,045. But as for Rep Pulse, that could be different. God dang it.
Yeah, because there's no way that there's more Hex on Pulse Chain holders than there's Pulse Chain holders, right?
So that info that
that wouldn't make any sense.
So the info that I gave you is correct. I mean, on Go Pulse, that's what it shows.
Yeah, Hex has the most holders.
Correct.
Pulsex only has 202,000.
And Pulse has 180 something or 100 and something.
Yeah, 110, really low.
Bro, those numbers are so far.
I mean,
go to hex.com.
I don't know. I don't like that's the real answer. I don't know. I'm just going by the numbers.
Yeah, and going off of history,
Correct.
all the like Pancake and Cake, dude, these things like run hard, but it's only at the end of the bull run when volume is extremely high.
Hex.com says there's 605,000 holders of Hex.
Yeah.
That's what Hex.com says, for 605,000 holders of Hex. Johnny Chaos was tweeting out the other day saying that there was 200,000 holders of Hex.
Damn.
I don't know where these numbers are coming from, and so that's why I would just say, like, I'm not trying to like tell you
No.
Flores that your numbers are wrong, but I'm saying like it don't. There's definitely more people sacrificed for Pulse X than they did for Pulse.
Correct.
Yes.
So those Pulse X holders would also be holders of Pulse, I would imagine, right?
To a point.
Nothing, right? I'm fast forwarding a little bit because there was really nothing that happened for a long time. Like by the time Hex even started to move, ETH had already done like almost like 15, 16x, right? So if you had just not even touched Hex until ETH topped, you would have just gotten 4 times more Hex than you could have ever gotten at any point during like adoption amplifier or at any other time. Like the right move was to not buy Hex until ETH topped. That would have been the best play. Like because the entire time Hex's value against ETH was falling, and then it flipped after Bitcoin tops, ETH tops, Hex starts to come up, Richard starts streaming. Right now, it's finally catching up on the market. You have the other two at all-time highs coming down. They're looking red, even though they're still at very high prices. You have a ton of unrealized gains in the system. Hex is finally starting. People are rotating out into alts and all that kind of stuff. Richard starts streaming, right? That gets more and more people to pay attention to it. Now, the kind of gains that you have on Ethereum now, like let's just say it's even the top. Let's just say we're still at $4,000 Ethereum. It came up from like 1,200. That's not even a 4x. At the time Hex ripped, that was a 20x run on Ethereum. Like way, way, way more than anything that's out there right now. You got to understand, there's just so much more profit. This is why people were spending $20-30 million on JPEGs. There was just a ton of unrealized gain in the system. Next to this price or to that price, there wasn't very much in LP. It starts to run. That feedback system happens. The tops occur. Richard starts talking about Pulsechain sac. People stop selling. They start sacrificing instead of selling, right? In this anticipation, the sac ends, and it's been on a down slope ever since. The only reason it ever pumped up to like 19 cents, I believe, at some point.
But it's healthy, bro. It's healthy for it to go all the way down.
Pullbacks.
Man.
You can't call 99% down healthy. It's not. I'm sorry, dude. It's just that is not like a healthy thing to do, like ever at any point.
When it was at $30 and went down to $2. Like that's like a 90%, 99, 95% dip.
Because no one was in crypto, bro. You got to remember, like this was a completely different time. Like you can't compare cycles in that way. You have to look at how much capital, what is the market cap of crypto? Back then, it was just very low. You didn't have $1 trillion in crypto. That's like guys, you can't do it like that. You can't just go back in time, like copy paste a section of your graph and say, oh, well, if it was back like 10 years ago, it would have been awesome. But it's not 10 years ago. Now the capital, there's way more of it, and it's accounted for either on other chains, on other assets. And what Pulsechain, this entire experiment is proving, even with Base, even with Ton, even with like projects, chains and projects that are putting in a ton of effort and investment, not like what Pulsechain is doing at all, right? They're actually having investors come in and pump this stuff, right? None of that happens on Pulsechain, but even with that, it's showing that it's very hard to get people to move into different assets. Like the XRP people are XRP people. It's not like it used to be, man. And so, yeah, it's very hard once someone gets into a particular ecosystem to get them to come back into yours. And so we had a ton of the market captured in Hex, but then everyone left and started doing other now they don't want to come back from those other things, and now you have to give them a reason to come back. And if you just held Bitcoin, you would have outperformed ETH. You would have outperformed, you would have just, over time, it outperforms everything. Everyone knows that, So what can you do? The only thing you can do is show that your project is outperforming at least Ethereum. Bitcoin crushed ETH by 30% this year. That's a lot. We can't even beat that. We can't even beat ETH right now, And
that's
coupled.
only holding. You're talking about just holding an asset. Like that's if you just held Bitcoin as an asset. Like that's not playing the market at all.
Are you some kind of genius guru trader here too? Or are you going to try to sell me on that now?
No, I'm just glad that I get to talk.
Do you
I'm
understand
just telling you.
what a rate of return is? Do you know what rates of return are?
Yeah, no, yeah, bro.
Yes or no? Yes, no, no, yes, yes. Do you know what that is?
Like you can gaslight me if you want to.
I'm
Like
asking
that's
you a
not gonna
simple
work.
question. You said yes
That's
and
not gonna
no. I'm
work.
trying to ask you, do you
Like
know
I've
what
been
a
in the
rate of
market.
return is?
Like I'm 48 years old. I've been in the market since I was like 17.
Like all this, I'm about to tell people that, yeah, but if you traded, you would have made. Did you do it?
I
Did you
wasn't
make $1
talking
million
about that.
this
I
year?
didn't say that. I'm saying that you're talking about just assets, that holding asset, like holding assets, like
Because
the return.
95% of people who trade lose even more.
Like
Very few
not
people know how
not
to
even, you
do
don't
it.
have to trade. You can just buy. Like you think that you're better off, honestly, because it's starting to sound like you're a Bitcoin maxi. Like so you're saying
You're
that,
dumb as bro. Holy
like,
stuff. Chart. Go look at it.
as I was
I
gonna
can
say,
hate
like,
Bitcoin and it's still true.
okay, so okay, now listen. Here it is. Like if you buy Bitcoin anytime this year, and what you're saying, if you were smart enough, which nobody can time any bottom and nobody can time any top, but if you were smart enough to buy a bottom, which is what you're going by, that this is what you're like. This,
Not.
yeah, it is.
Nope. No, I'm
You're
not.
going off. You're going off of the bottom to where it is
When
now.
did I say anything about the bottom? Didn't mention
Well,
it one
then what are you
time.
going by?
I said this year, since the year started, ETH is down 30% against Bitcoin.
Okay.
Everyone can go look at
All
that.
right. So let's just use. All right. Let's use that then. Let's
Okay.
just use the year. Whenever it is that you want to decide that you want to start that.
Okay.
So, but you're.
You want to start it in 2022 because then it will
I
be
don't care
down
what. You
50%.
can start whenever you want. Let's start whenever you want. You
Do
just
you want
pick.
to start?
You pick. You pick. I
Okay,
don't care.
it's down 50% since 2022, and it's
Okay.
down
Let's do it.
30% since this year
All
started.
right.
It
Let's
doesn't
do it.
matter where you
What
pick.
you just tell me where you want to start it. Where you want to start it. Where do you want to start it?
I don't know what I'm trying to get at. I'm telling
I'm
you
just
that that
telling you
is
about assets. Like you can buy a cheaper asset, and then everybody knows that like the cheaper the asset is, the more room it has to grow.
not
So
true at
like
all.
you're arguing against pulse chain. Like the best time to buy
Not
pulse chain.
listening. You're one of these pigeonholed mothers who's
No,
never read a
you
book that a chart just kind of like sits at a price and then just goes up forever. It doesn't happen. Usually, that last candle down will be the biggest move down in a long time. That's what I'm saying. Okay, go ahead, DCA, do whatever you want. I'm not telling you what or where to buy. I never do that. I just know personally, especially in this type of market where you have such thin liquidity, there's no order books, there's no one shoring anything up. You don't even have a V3. Usually before it turns around, another whale or two will capitulate. And if you have nothing left to buy for that 1 or 2 days where it does another 40-50% down, well, you're just gonna have less pulse. That's all it is. The other side is when you see an uptrend form, that's when you buy. You want to buy when you see there's upward motion in the chart. You don't want to buy it when it just keeps going lower. At least after you buy, you're up, right? I mean, if you guys have no problem sitting there just losing a bunch of money and not being able to take advantage of like truly like outstanding opportunities, it'll very likely happen. I don't know if it's going to last a long time. You might have to act quick, but you might see another, I don't know, somewhere probably between another 20 and 40% dip on this chart. And if you have a little gunpowder left, that is going to completely change your average. Like that is the opportunity. Otherwise, wait for money to come into the chain. I promise you, this is a better way to do it. Don't be greedy. Don't think you're buying wicks. This is how everyone gets destroyed. And I know it from personal experience. So if you want to be like me, when I thought I was buying the lowest low and lower and just sitting there waiting for, you know how long I waited for Hex to work out? I saw everything else pump. If I just stayed in Bitcoin, just stayed in ETH, just like never swapped into Hex, made all the difference in the world. But for the entire time, besides those 2 months, I was getting wrecked on choosing to hold Hex. Staked or unstaked, didn't matter.
Was
So,
that before RH was saying 11K and pray or after?
was that?
Was that before RH was saying 11K or pray or after?
Sorry, what was the word before pray?
Was that the time when RH was saying 11K or pray or after?
No, this was the beginning of Hex, man. This was
All
before
right.
Hex pumped.
Yeah. That's why you got wrecked.
If you took, yeah,
Rick
that we
party, bro.
we
He
all got
did.
wrecked on it. That's why now and then once everything went good, people would come around in these spaces and be like, "Oh man, I wish I was an OG." No, you don't. It was miserable. It was absolutely like everyone called us the worst shit in the book, dude. We were idiots. I remember thinking like, "Man, this price is so low. Oh, it's got to go up a lot more." And this is exactly the logic that is like.
OG Trillion. OG was 2019, beginning of 2020.
Well, yeah.
You got
You think that was a good time? Or you think everybody had a great
back,
time who was in?
as
Like within
back. That was way too late, man.
What do you mean way too late?
If you invested into Hex at 20 cents or 10 cents, that was way too late.
20 cents, dude. All of my Hex was purchased under like a cent. All of it. Like I
So that
never
was the beginning of 2020.
this this was like
Yeah, everyone that bought
was
before Big
2020.
Payday was getting a decent price.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, no, the prices were great, but we knew that later. But if you go look at that price action, it was kind of doing nothing as the rest of the market was coming up. Like, yeah, before Big Payday,
Yeah.
it went up a lot, but then it dumped to right away, right? And
And mid, let's say it was at 0003. So 3 zeros and the 3. 0003 times 160. You would have made more with Hex, bro.
No. But you have to layer the charts over each other, right? Because one happened after the other, right? So
Dude, there was like immense FOMO you would have felt until Hex actually performed. That's what he's saying. Like the whole
agreed.
market was moving against like everyone who wasn't in the main stuff. Like that is
We all went.
painful psychologically.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, you didn't want like to be an OG meant you basically just like you had to like tune out because we were getting wrecked. Like, it didn't seem like a very good decision at all for a while until it started to run, and then that's when like as soon as it started to even kind of run, ETH was already way up, like way up, and that those 2 months, like if you were in Hex early and you weren't around for those 2 months, you did not outperform Ethereum. Like, you had to have stayed in for those 2 months. But that's how crypto is, you know? Here, I'll pull up the Hex chart if I could try to find one that goes back that far. Yeah, I know when you look at it and you don't take into account like what time, like the sequence of when things topped. Yeah, you might think like, well, yeah, of course, eventually Hex went to 52. Yeah, true, but it took a while. Like, other things happened like in between.
Yeah, but let's say you got into Ethereum in 2020 at 125 a coin, and you got into that 0003, you would have been okay with X rather than Ethereum.
Dude, I don't know how else to explain it to you. ETH outperformed Hex for a long time. Like, pretty like ETH had already done a 20x, and like Pulse and Hex had still not moved. Like, it did maybe like a 2x or
Well,
not even.
2017 Ethereum was $80, and then it went to 125 in 2020. You say?
No, bro, we're looking at what you need to take the Hex chart and layer it over an ETH chart. That's all you have to do here. We're talking about 2020 onward. Like, you can look further
That's
back, but
talking about cash. I'm talking about like the amount of what you will get with cash.
yeah, but we're
I
not
mean,
in
I
cash, we're in
mean,
crypto. What cash are you talking about?
I'm talking about 2020. One Ethereum was $125 an average, and in 2021 it did a 40x to $5,000.
Okay.
But if you would have put the same amount of money you put in Ethereum into Hex at 0003, you would have had a 160x.
You're not taking into account time. I'm saying, yeah,
But the
eventually
time was
it.
only a few months. It was
Bro, what
only a few
the fuck?
months here.
Okay, but in those few months, you could have gotten at easily 4 times more hex. Because you got to look at, guys, if you're not looking at ratios, you're looking up. You have to go look at ETH or hex ETH, like hex priced in ETH. That's what you have to look at, right? And what I'm saying is, all right, so here, I'll tell you exactly where it flipped. Let me see if it'll actually come up. Yeah, so it was May 2021. Here, I'll like this chart is so obvious. Let me show you. I'll post it so you know that like, yeah, this is for real. I'm not gonna measure it out. You guys can go find the chart yourself and you can measure it. I'm just gonna show you the date, right? So basically until May of 2020 or 2021, ETH outperformed Hex. Like, you were better off holding ETH until May 2021. And then between May and September, right? Like, the biggest gains were between July and September, right? But basically between May and September, that was all of the gains that Hex ever had on top of ETH. That was it. And then yeah, you had that little flurry in the beginning of 2023, and now Hex priced in ETH is even lower than where it was in 2021. So like, I would basically, like, if I had held it from when I initially bought it early on, like midway through 2020, and just held it, I would have even less ETH. Like, it's just what happened, man. Here, let me it's down 54% against ETH from mid 2020. I'm not measuring from the top. I'm just saying like the OGs would have had twice as much more USD cash just holding ETH this entire time. But if you got into Hex and sold the top, you got way more Bitcoin, way more ETH. I think my ratio was something like every half of like one Bitcoin turned into 40. Like, for every one Bitcoin worth of Hex, you could get 40 Bitcoin at the top. Like, that's insane. But that didn't happen for a while. Like, we were definitely the losers for quite a long time.
Trend against it. But I mean, Oh, just the die pair. Forget USDC. Forget Tether. Just the Pulse die pair has done $2 billion of volume in the 15, 16, 17 months. I've lost track. Almost a year and a half. But it's done over $2 billion of volume, which is more than the market capitalization of the entire chain. So, like, there's interest in the chain. There just hasn't been overwhelming interest or the large capital injections that we do need. So, I mean, I like to think that this is a part of market conditions. The fact that the tightening cycle and we're just getting the liquidity injection, the global liquidity cycle is just starting to spike. So, I mean, we're getting a delayed cycle, but this is where Pulsechain, yeah, I agree. It's kind of in danger where if it falls more than 85%, which is technically about 50% or 60% drop from current price. If we go below that, we're really in the shithole territory, but that's from SAC value. Currently, from the high that was set recently, we are at the 85%
Yeah, I was
dip
gonna say, dude,
currently,
we're already
basically.
there. We're already
Yeah,
there. We don't have
and
to wait for anything.
this is where I was speculating, or like, because you're talking 1 million versus 100, and those are big gaps, but I'm talking just $10 million injections. Like, he put 600 million in ETH. That chunk is there, but without even touching that chunk, there's other capital left from the sacrifices that wasn't fully rotated into
The
that
reason,
stupid trades that
the
he
reason
can
I,
inject
the,
amounts of like 10 million at a time, right?
yeah,
If we're
absolutely.
at a danger bottom.
Here's what you have to do. Like, so look, I don't really care that it's down or anything.